Okay, I'm Melissa Salrin. I'm here with Rachael Woody, and we are interviewing Gordy Venneri at Walla Walla Vintners on July 18th, 2014. So the first question is obvious. Why wine?
Why wine? Okay, well, the whole thing with the Walla Walla Vintners and the wine started as a hobby. I had gone to college. My personal story is I'd gone to college at Eastern and I majored in business and accounting. So when I was in my 20s, I was looking for a hobby, things to do that were outside of accounting. And obviously people did sports or golf or whatever, different people had different hobbies. So when I was 28, I went to Italy and to see where my grandfather was from and find out about my Italian roots on my dad's side. And when I was over there, I got into the whole European food and wine thing and started, enjoying wine with meals. And then I found out that my cousins, who are still over in Italy, they were making their own wine for their own family use. So I just thought that would be really great to, that point in my life, this was probably in the this was in the early 80s. I was interested in learning about Italian things, like growing your own food, making your own wine, sort of the Italian lifestyle, European, Mediterranean, whatever you want to call it. So besides gardening, I thought making wine would be really great, and you'd have something tangible. Like in accounting, you do a bunch of work and you have paper files that you put away, but there isn't anything that you're really producing. So the idea was to have a hobby that you could enjoy, share with friends, and have something tangible at the end of it. Sort of like woodworking or something, painting, you have something that's a product of your hobby.
Wonderful.
So.
Okay, and so how did you and Miles then get together and start making wine?
Well, the reason Miles and I got together is at the time I went to Italy, Miles was at the community college. He was working there, so I was teaching there at the time. I was in a business major and an accountant, but I took a year to teach business at Walla Walla Community College. So we were colleagues at the college, and when I told him I was going to Europe and Italy, he talked to me about wine and enjoying wine on my trip. And then when I got back, I told him I wanted to make wine, produce wine, and he said, well, I drink wine and I'd really like to learn how to produce wine too, so we did it together. We decided it was easier for two people to learn this instead of one. And in fact, there was two other people that eventually joined us.
Okay, and who were those people?
The people that joined us were a chemistry teacher at Walla Walla High School named Jim Tomlin, and a social studies teacher at Walla Walla High School named Roger Cockerline, who eventually started Bunchgrass Winery. He was the 11th winery. We were about the 8th winery in 1995. Okay. And shortly after we started, Roger started Bunchgrass.
Okay. So you would just get together and just try new things. And I mean, how did you do the research to learn about what it is you should be doing?
Okay, well, that's a good question. We were self-taught winemakers. So what happened was we decided we wanted to make wine, and it was fun. But hey, wait a minute, we don't know anything about this. How do we do this, So we immediately started, buying books, researching that way. There were 7 other wineries here, and I have to say they were very helpful. So like we were already customers of a lot of the wineries that were here because we started drinking wine. So when we would go to buy wine or purchase wine from these existing wineries, the first 7 wineries, or let's say a winery in another part of the state, we would ask questions like, what kind of yeast do you use? And we would, ask questions. And so we would learn by asking other people. And then in the first couple of years, the biggest thing is we had to line up really good wine grapes. So we started asking, trying to find somebody who would sell us 1,000 pounds of grapes, which is about what you need for 1 barrel of wine. So we said, okay, let's make a barrel of wine. So we'd pool our money, start asking, and eventually we'd find somebody who would sell us 1,000 pounds, and then we could practice on that 1,000 pounds. And I must say, in the early days, we did make mistakes, but we'd learn from our mistakes. And then next year, you had to wait a whole year now for another vintage, and then you'd buy another 1,000 pounds of grapes, and this time do it differently. Try to do it to where wouldn't turn out as, it'd be better than the year before because you didn't make as many mistakes. So it was a trial and error thing. And eventually we made all the mistakes, learned all the things, and our wine started being acceptable to where we enjoyed it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I know you've already mentioned a couple of them, but who were some of the other first winemakers, wine growers in the Walla Walla Valley?
Well, I think the 7 that came before us, I can almost list them. I think Leonetti Cellars and Woodward Canyon were the first 2. And then I know Lacole and Waterbrook were in there. And then there was a small winery, Patrick Paul Winery, and Seven Hills. Seven Hills Winery was on the Oregon side of the state line, but we considered them a winery in the valley, of course. And then I think the 7th winery was Canoe Ridge, and they started just before us. And John Abbott at Canoe Ridge at the time was the winemaker, and he was very helpful too in helping us answer questions and helping us learn more about the chemistry of winemaking. So.
Okay. I mean, I know when we talked to some of the other winemakers, they said when they first started planting grapes, people thought, what are you doing? What are you doing in Walla Walla Valley doing this? And did you get that reaction at all, or
we did not get that reaction because we, in the wine world, there's people that grow grapes, there's people that make wine, and there's some that do both. And we were the type of winery at the time that just made wine. So we relied on other people to grow the grapes. And people were already planting the other grapes. So nobody thought necessarily we were crazy for planting grapes because we didn't plant any. But they might have thought some of the early pioneers of planting grapes probably got that, I imagine. But I have no history with that because we didn't really plant grapes. In fact, we now have estate grapes up here at Walla Walla Vintners, but we didn't plant those until 2008. Because for a long time people thought, well, it was a little bit too high in elevation and too cool up here at where we are located now in the upper Mill Creek area, and that maybe it was a little too cold for grapes. But then eventually we realized that grapes would even grow well in this climate up here, the right varieties. So. But in the early days, we ourselves even thought this isn't a good place to grow grapes. Now we stand corrected. So.
Yeah. And how did you come up with the name Walla Walla Vintners?
Well, that's another good question. We struggled with that for a long time because my name is Venneri, which I didn't think was very romantic, like Leonetti or Woodward Canyon or something like that. Miles' name was Anderson, and when we actually started the commercial aspect, we were hobbyists for 14 years. In '95, we were the 8th bonded winery. At the time, we had a third vintner, a third partner. His name was Alan Jones. So our names were Venneri, Anderson, and Jones. So nothing really sounded very romantic or from a marketing point of view. So we struggled with other names. What about Mill Creek? Because this is where we are in the Mill Creek area. But there was other wineries in California named Mill Creek. So we tried to get a name that was based on locale, our name. Nothing seemed to sound very good. And finally one of us said, and I don't remember which one, but well, we could say like Walla Walla Winery or Walla Walla Cellars or something like that, because nobody's used the name Walla Walla yet. And we got to thinking about it and we thought, maybe that would be a good name because Walla Walla was in 1995 when we were bonded. It was just starting to get some notoriety. Well, people had already knew Woodward Canyon and some of those other wineries were doing well, but the area hadn't grown yet. But the growth was just starting. And we kind of thought, if you had Walla Walla in the name and maybe somebody looked at a wine list in Seattle and saw Walla Walla Vintners Merlot or whatever, that might get them to try it because Walla Walla, isn't that where they have some of those really good wineries? So we kind of thought it was a good marketing choice. But we didn't like Walla Walla Winery, we didn't like Walla Walla Cellars, but we thought Walla Walla Vintners sounded better than the other two. So we chose Vintners instead of Cellars and Winery.
Great. Yeah, it's
Simple.
A great name.
Yeah, simple.
Works well.
Yeah.
So the Walla Walla Valley Wine Alliance is an important organization. And can you say a little bit about the role it plays?
Well, I think the Wine Alliance is great. It plays an important role. What I think the interesting thing about the wine industry as a whole, it's a very different industry. And before I talk about that, let me back up and say, like I always tell people, if I was like an undertaker, or I had if I was a barber, or maybe some other kind of occupation, an accountant in Walla Walla, I would want to be the only one and then get all the business. But the thing about a tourism business that makes it different is if you have a restaurant or a motel or a winery and you want to get people to come to your area, you have to have an industry there. People aren't going to come to visit Walla Walla if there's only one winery, just like they wouldn't go to Napa Valley if there was only one winery. So you need a multitude of wineries, restaurants, motels, and other activities, even like the Gisa Powerhouse Theater, those kinds of things, to entertain people. So, as one of the other winemakers once said, we're in bed together whether we like it or not. We're an industry. And most people in this industry that are in the wine business get that. So they realize you have to work together. Mm-hmm. One of my jokes is I've never been to somebody's house, went to their wine cellar, and saw that they had a whole cellar full of Walla Walla Vintners wine. They always have a whole bunch of wines. Mm-hmm. You want to be one of the wines. Mm-hmm. So you have to come to that realization that this is a different business. It isn't like, once again, we want to be the only winery in Walla Walla. You want to be part of an industry. So obviously that leads to the alliance. You want to work together to get people to come and enjoy your city, your wineries, and the other things, the other hospitality industries that you have. So it's important to work together to try to portray a good image of your area. So that's why the alliance is very important.
Well, and I know you and Miles have a reputation for being very helpful to others who are establishing their own wineries and vineyards. And I know K Vintners and Spring Valley Vineyards and College Cellars and Amoris. And so if someone comes to you and says, I want to do this, what do you say to them?
Well, obviously at that time we said yes, we wanted to help them. And part of the reason that we wanted to help them was for the reason I just mentioned. We wanted to help grow the industry as a whole to give our region credibility as a wine producing region. The more wineries, the better. To be honest with you, at this point, Miles and I feel like we have sort of done our thing, and we are still helping Bunchgrass Winery a little bit. Bunchgrass has changed ownership, and we're helping the new owners at Bunchgrass. But at this point, we aren't looking for new projects as far as helping people, and we also feel like the industry now is getting pretty full. We've got over 130 wineries. I don't know the exact count. Miles probably knows, or the Alliance probably keeps track of all that. But at this point, we feel like we're going to focus more on what we're doing. The new thing for Walla Walla Vintners is our estate wine program. We're going to have our estate wines, so we're going to be busy with that. But we enjoyed helping all those other wineries in the early days. It was a lot of fun and part of building the industry as a whole, so we would have credibility as a wine industry.
And I know with the establishment of the program, the Institute for Enology and Viticulture at the CC, that has certainly changed things. And I know when that was established, the program was founded in 2000, but when they didn't have College Cellars up and running yet, they didn't have the vineyard planted, the students came here, right? Yes.
We helped Walla Walla Community College Viticulture and Enology program in the early days before they got their building built. Obviously, Miles was the director of the program, so that gave us a tie to them. But even say take that away, we would still be very helpful of that program. We really believe in, it's like any other industry that you talk about. Every industry should or does have usually a educational institution that's backing them. Like, for example, the obvious one in the state of Washington is like Eastern Washington is an agricultural farm area. We have Washington State University that does a lot of research for grains and wheats and agricultural commodities. They're supportive of the agricultural industry in Eastern Washington. That's the way we feel about the wine industry, is every good industry should have a educational institution working with them. And they put out a lot of students that work in our industry, and we're supportive of that.
Wonderful. That's great. Now, I know that Walla Walla Vintners is a member of the Walla Walla Valley Wine Growers Sustainable Trust, which was established in 2004. And can you say a little bit about the growing emphasis on sustainable viticulture in the valley?
Well, I think most people nowadays that are growing grapes are trying to grow grapes with that in mind, that they want to grow grapes in a sustainable fashion. So the thing about grapes that's really nice is that, okay, grapes are the kind of crop that if everything goes right and you plant them and you take care of them, a grapevine will last a long time. So it's in your, number one, it's in your own economic interest to take care of your vines, just like fruit trees. You know, they'll produce over and over and over again, and you won't have to replant them, which means that you'll have lower costs. But besides that, we want of course, our product to be environmentally safe. We want our product, our wine, to be healthy, to be healthy as far as a beverage that you can enjoy with food, with the least amount of intervention, the least amount of chemicals and all that good stuff. And so our whole idea of our vines is to raise vines that are going to be healthy now and in the future. And so we try to do things that are long-term and that have health benefits for the vines, because we don't have to replant them, and we want them to be healthy and safe and put out a safe product for customers. So everything we do, we try to do as best as we can to make sure we do that. The beautiful thing about grapes, in this area at least so far, is we don't have a lot of pests. So we can do, there's not a lot of natural pesticides or a lot of pesticides needed for grapes anyway, which is great. And because that's one of the things that in a lot of agricultural industries, they struggle with. How do you raise a sustainable crop, let's say an environmentally friendly or organic crop, and still keep the pests from eating your crop? So there's something left for the human beings, And so luckily for grapes, there isn't a lot of natural pests. So that really works out good. And like, for example, we plant cover crops between the rows, and then we mow them. And then that way you don't have to spray for weeds or use herbicides, that kind of stuff. There's not a lot of herbicides needed, because as long as you mow between the rows, you're going to keep the weeds and the grasses mowed down, and then there's not a lot of herbicides needed. So there's a lot of things you can do to be sustainable and to be friendly to the environment and to build up the soil. The other thing we're doing a lot of soil work, like with soil amendments, and we're trying to build up our soils so the soils are healthy and that the vines are healthy, and that we feel like then we're going to have a better crop, better quality wine too. So.
Excellent. I know we sort of touched on this, but in 1995, there were 11 wineries in the valley, and then by this year, again, depending on how you count, more than 120, and about 1,600 acres of grapes. So aside from the sense of scale that has changed, I mean, what else do you think has changed?
Well, besides the sense of scale, the biggest thing is obviously that I think that's changed over the 20 years that we've been in business, and I don't know if you want me to talk about this or not, but is the marketing. I mean, it's great to have more wineries and more of an industry, but there's more marketing involved too, because now you have more competition. So the fact that you have more wineries is great as far as being an industry, but it does put a little more emphasis and a little more emphasis on marketing your product and getting people to come to see you. And when you're the 8th winery in 95, you sell out really quickly, and everybody that comes to Walla Walla sees you because they're here for a weekend and there's not enough wineries. Now that there's 130 wineries, they're only going to pick 10 or 12 that they like. So you have to be one of those. You still want the industry, you still want people to come, you still want the competition, but you have to really be sharp on your marketing now, because you can't just sit back on your laurels and say, okay, yeah, you know, build it and they will come. Yeah, build an industry and they will come, but they may not come to Walla Walla Vintners, you know. So there's 100 and some choices now. So you have to be, that's really changed. I think if almost anybody you ask will tell you that there's a lot more friendly competition as far as marketing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that's my portion of things.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
And well,
Sure.
let's kick off from there. Given how much it has changed, where do you see the industry evolving in the future?
Well, okay, I have to say I'm not a soothsayer or anything like that. I've been a funny story is, well, let me back up and tell you a funny story. When we decided to become a commercial winery in 1995, and there were 7 other wineries, we lost sleep thinking that maybe there was already 7 wineries and there was too many. And would there be room for another winery? I mean, especially me, because I'm the business guy, but I thought, oh, there's no way, you know, gosh, we're gonna make 600 cases of wine, and how are we gonna sell all that? And there's already 7 other wineries. So I always say that I was like the worst predictor of where the industry's going, because I thought 8 wineries was too many back in '95. I've heard everybody say that eventually there'll be 200 wineries. That's not me. Other people have said that there's going to be 200 wineries someday in this valley, and that's where the industry's going. So honestly, I really don't know. I've always been totally surprised at how many wineries there really are, to be honest with you. So I can't predict that. I'm not. I love to live in the future, but as far as predicting, forget it. You know.
Fair enough.
So
That's a good story.
yeah.
My next question for you is, in your opinion, what is this region known for? What is its identity?
Okay, what is like Walla Walla? What is Walla Walla known for, as opposed to, let's say, another part of the valley? I mean, another part of the state, or let's say California or Italy or something like that. You mean?
I would like all of those answers.
Okay. Well, is that what you're saying? Like, what are we known for, as in comparison, or just in?
It can
general?
be comparison, or it can be like, you know, standalone. What is it known for?
Yeah. Well, as far as like, you know, I think what we're known for in the industry, we're known as, okay, first of all, I think we're a part of the state or a part of the country or the world, depending on how you look at it, that really emphasizes quality wine. I mean, we're all trying to make a really good quality wine. So we're known for quality. You know, if you think of Walla Walla wine, a lot of customers think quality. You know, there's a lot of quality wine in Walla Walla. I think we're also known as working together and being friendly, and as far as wineries working together, we talked about that earlier. I think even though there's more and more wineries, people get along and they do try to work together and they're friendly to one another. We try to recommend other wineries, so we're known as that. And as far as grapes go, I think we're known as, there's some white wines, there's some good white wines, there's some rosés, there's some really good Syrah. I think originally we were known for the red grapes, you know, red wine we're known for, and like Cabernet, Merlot, and Syrah, those types of grapes. We make Italian wines like Sangiovese, but I think we're known for the dry red wines as far as in the industry. We're more known for that than our white wines. But, you know, winemakers like to experiment, and who knows, you know, I mean, you know, there's probably grape varietals that have never been planted here that might be the future of our industry too, who knows. There's still a lot of land in Walla Walla, and, you know, there's room for a lot more vineyards. So I see the growth of vineyards more than I see the growth in wineries at this point. But who knows, it might catch up or balance out too.
You may not know the answer to this, but how many more vineyards? Could it double in acreage, or?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know the one limiting factor is water. We have the one limiting, where we are up here in Upper Mill Creek, we get about 20 inches of rain a year. And so at this point, we call our vineyard a dry land vineyard. We have not irrigated. But in other parts of the valley or the state, where they get less than, let's say, 16 to 20 inches of rain, like the Tri-Cities get 7 inches of rain, they have to water. And their soils are sandy and more porous. And even on the other side of the valley of Walla Walla, the west side of the valley where they grow grapes, they have to water. So the limiting factor in grapes is water and water rights. So it's very political, but right now it's hard to get commercial water rights in our state for any crop, not just grapes. So you have to have the right site that has water rights, and that's because there's tons of fields around us here where grapes would be great, but if they can't water, then it doesn't matter. Even if you could acquire that land, it might not be a good place to grow grapes because of the lack of water.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. What would you say are the strengths or challenges of having a cross-state AVA?
The challenges in having a cross-state.
So Oregon and Washington.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I see where the Walla Walla AVA goes into the Oregon, into the side of the state line or whatever on the Oregon side. I haven't noticed anything on that really. I don't see that as a big issue. I think the reason it was established, AVAs are kind of based on more geographical areas than state or political boundaries. And I think the reason the Oregon side of our AVA exists is because it's all part of the bowl of what we call the Walla Walla Valley. So you have the Walla Walla River, and then you have Mill Creek, Yellow Hawk Creek, and some little streams that all flow into the Walla Walla River and then flow down to Wallula and dump into the Columbia River. So that is part of a geographic area, this valley, this Walla Walla Valley. And that Walla Walla Valley goes over to the Oregon side. So to me, that's why it's naturally part of the AVA and makes sense. Yeah. And other than that, I don't have that much issues with it. We buy grapes from Oregon, and we also, from the Oregon side of the AVA, and it's never been an issue for us. So.
Excellent. I know you said you're not a soothsayer, but do you see more growth happening in Oregon versus Washington, or?
Not necessarily. I don't see that. I think that's just a luck of the draw thing. You know what I mean? It just depends on who's going to decide to grow grapes. I think right now, one of the growth areas in the Oregon side, I think, is the people that like to do the Syrah in the rocks. So there's a lot of the lower elevation, rockier soil Syrah that's being grown. I think that's being grown mostly on the Oregon side. And I think there's some new vineyards that growing out there. And they have, a lot of those vineyards used to be fruit orchards. So there's water that's with them already. So they don't have to like get new water rights or whatever. They have existing water rights. So that seems to be like a growth area in the valley from what I know.
Excellent. Where would you say your passion lies in this business?
Personally, my passion, I think, still goes back to the fact that you can take a raw product like a grape cluster or grape clusters, and you can make them into something that's really a fine beverage to share with people. So for us, the producing of the product, which is was the hobby, goes back to the hobby. You know, I'm going to produce something that's tangible, that you can smell, taste, drink, touch, and that is always fun in the fall to do that again. And then I think the second part of it is sharing that with friends and family. And friends and family, even which are customers even to this day. You know, we call our customers our friends and family. So that's where we really enjoy this industry. There's a lot of things in any industry that maybe aren't as fun as others, but to me, though, that's the two important parts and the fun part that keeps it fun and exciting. So when I do winemaker dinners, I'll tell a little story here, if I can do
Please.
A little tangent here. A lot of times when we do winemaker dinners, or a lot of times people that come to the winery always go, oh, it'd be great to have your own winery. Wouldn't it be great to have your own winery? And I'd like to quit my job and move to Walla Walla and have a winery. And I say, you know, that's great and that's a lot of fun. But I said, you know, the thing that's the most fun about the wine industry is what we're doing tonight. We're sitting down in this restaurant, there's 40 people, we're enjoying wines matched with food. That's the best thing about the wine industry, and you're here tonight participating in it. You get to participate in the part of the wine industry that's the most fun, and I always tell them that. And they still want to come and have their own winery, of course. But I said, but the other stuff, that's all work, that's not as much fun as tonight. This is going to be the most fun. The other stuff is work. It's crushing grapes. Crushing grapes sounds romantic, but when you do like a small winery like us and you do 130 tons, then it becomes work too, It's fun work, but it's still work, It's not as fun as sitting down and enjoying the final product. So,
if you had advice to give to a new winemaker or a person entering the industry, what would it be?
Okay. Well, now what I tell people, in the early days it was different, but what I tell people now, if somebody comes up to me and says they're going to start their own, I'm a little more cynical, and I think it's like being my advice is going to be more cynical in the old days. It was great. We need some more wineries to help create the industry. Get in here, jump in. Now I'm a little more cynical because of the numbers that we have already and the competition to sell your wine. So now my cynicism revolves around the fact that, okay, look, you're going to start a winery. So I say, let me play the devil's advocate. Why would I want to buy your wine? Well, what do you mean why I want to buy my wine? They say, what do you mean? Why? So, well, yeah, well, okay, you're going to make wine. Why would I want to buy it? Well, because it's going to be handcrafted and it's going to be wonderful and whatever. I said, yeah, there's already 200 people in Walla Walla that say the same thing. You've got to distinguish yourself competitively, with those other people. How are you going to distinguish yourself? What's going to make people want to buy your wine? I'm doing this as a friend now. I'm not doing this to be critical. I'm cynical, but I'm doing this to help you out, because if you want to start a winery, you have to decide what's going to be great about your winery that's going to be different, and to get people to focus on buying your wine. And so that's what I tell people now. You got to have a really good marketing plan. Where before you could make it and they will come, but now you got to make it. It's got to be good, and you got to figure out how to get people to try your wine versus the 140 or 50 that are already here, and the 800 in the state, and all the Oregon ones, and the California, and the New York, and the Italian, and the French, and the Argentinian and Chilean. There's lots of wine out there. So what's going to make you special? That's what I tell them. And they don't listen to me. They start a winery anyway. No, and some of them are really successful, I'm sure, or going to be. But I think they always appreciate hearing that. So having somebody tell them, okay, that's a really good point. In other words, it's about selling wine now. It's the business part of making wine. It's the when I got into it as a hobby, we didn't worry. It was a hobby. We didn't worry about selling the wine. We just worried about making really good wine, and the selling it was secondary till we got our license. And even then, we found out pretty quickly it sold pretty quick because there was just a shortage of wineries still. But now it's all about a marketing plan.
Right. When did you notice that change, that transition?
Oh gosh, I would say it's probably been that way maybe for the last 8 to 10 years at least. Yeah, at least. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember how many. As the numbers grew, when all the numbers. But we were the 8th winery in '95, and maybe 5 years later there was quite a few. It was already went from 8 to 50 or 60. I would say don't trust my figures on that. There's probably real facts on that, so I wouldn't necessarily trust me on that. But as it got to be where there was quite a few wineries, and when you're the only winery, when there's a small amount of wineries and someone can come here for the weekend and catch them all, it's no problem. But once it got to where there were so many wineries that on a trip, a customer visiting Walla Walla could not see them all. Then you had to have marketing, because then you had to be one of their ones that they came to see.
Right.
Yeah, and so you had to do something to make sure you were on that list of ones they were going to see this weekend.
So what did you guys do to get on that list?
Well, part of it was luck, in the sense that we were early. just the fact that we were the 8th winery, we were considered one of the older wineries, and that helped us. But at Walla Walla Vintners, we really have an emphasis on customer service. So because we like to share wine with friends and family, and that's part of our mission, is to make the wine and share it with people and help people enjoy wine with food and friends. We really emphasize that. So we try to be a very friendly place, and we try to do everything we can to emphasize customer service and to make sure people have a really good experience when they visit Walla Walla Vintners. We have friendly people in the tasting room. We always try to accommodate people, as much as we can. We get some unusual requests, but we try to, accommodate people as much as we can. If we can do it, we will, usually. We have that kind of an attitude. So try to be very open to visitors and for them having a good time. So I think a lot of our success is word of mouth, people that come here. And the third thing I would say is lately, we've been really emphasizing our locales. Like, I don't know if when you came up the driveway, you noticed our neighbors, Maurice, planted that beautiful lavender, and which we get to share because our customers come up the driveway through the lavender. And then we have the Blue Mountains behind us here. We have all the vineyards that have lately been put in and planted since about 2006. There's more vineyards up here. So it's really beautiful up here. And we do not do a lot of crazy things like some wineries, let's say, I shouldn't say crazy, that's a bad word, but we are still pretty modest in our surroundings. We haven't put millions of dollars into our facility itself, but we have beautiful grounds. So people we don't sell food, we don't have a restaurant, we don't sell t-shirts, but we have like picnic tables, and we encourage people to come up and just enjoy the outside part of our winery and the beauty of this area of Walla Walla. So that's been a real positive for us. Just, so we make good wine. You got to make really good wine. You got to be really consumer friendly, and it helps to have a beautiful location here.
That's a good 3-item list.
Yeah, people go to Napa Valley and certain wine areas. They want to see grapes growing. They want to see, all the beautiful countryside. And so we have that here. We're lucky enough to have chosen this place.
Right.
And, so, okay.
All right. Well, my last question for you is, between Melissa and myself, what have we not asked you that we should have, or any parting thoughts on your end?
I don't. You're really asking me to be creative there. That's not my.
Well, we just really wanted to make sure that if there was something you felt very passionate about, or that was very important, that we didn't omit it from.
No, I think the wine. I'll say one thing. I will say about. Yeah, I guess I could add a couple things there. I think the wine industry, of course, is a great industry for Walla Walla. I will add this. I was born and raised in Walla Walla. People ask me all the time, where are you from? I say, well, I'm a native Trout. I was born here. I went to college. I never thought I would move back to my hometown. In my generation, I was born in, kind of grew up in the 60s and 70s. You never thought it was going to be cool to come back to your small town. I came back after college, a little while after college, to kind of regroup and look for an accounting job, and then I got into the food and wine and travel, which were some of my vices. And after I got into the traveling and the food and wine thing and started the hobby of winemaking, then I decided, well, I really like Walla Walla, I'm going to stay here. So, and because you have to be close to your grapes and close to your industry. And so I would say that as far as maybe from a point of view, I grew up here. I was born in 1954, I'll tell you that. And so I grew up in the late 50s, 60s, and Walla Walla was always, looking back, I had a great childhood, I thought it was a great town. But I would just say in general that I think the wine industry has really elevated Walla Walla as far as being a lot nicer town. I think the wine industry's done a lot of positive things. Now, I know that can sometimes be controversial. There's probably not everybody agrees with me on that. And I like to consider myself a very open-minded person. I say I'm old-fashioned, but I'm open-minded. That's one of my little sayings. And so I like to listen to the negative as far as like how maybe the wine industry hasn't been great for a small town in eastern Washington. But I see a lot of positive things. I think we have a really viable little downtown. But Walla Walla's a great town. We have the grain farmers, the wheat farmers. We have state institutions like our state pen. We have 3 hospitals, including the Veterans Hospital. We have 3 colleges. We have a Corps of Engineers. And that made for a really good economy in Walla Walla. But now we have the agricultural industry has expanded to include grape growing, which is a little expansion of the agriculture. And then we have the winemaking industry, which is added to those other industries. And then we have the tourism industry because of the people coming here. So I think those, in the last 10 to 15 years, the tourism industry and the wine production industry have helped give Walla Walla a little boost as far as our economy and being on our quality of life, having a nice place. Excuse me, having a nice place to live and be. It's enhanced our quality, and we're really supportive of the things along with that. Like I mentioned the Geisa Powerhouse Theater. You know, it's great if our customers come here that then they have theater to do. You know,
right.
And we always tell people, look, you know. We've had a few friends that move here. I was talking to a guy the other day that just bought a house here because he likes Walla Walla, thought it was a great town, partly because of the wine industry, but he really likes chamber music. And we do that chamber music festival here in June for the whole month. And he went to every single one, loved it here, bought a home. And I was telling him about, for example, Whitman College has a great drama department. The students put on great plays. You can get a season ticket for practically nothing and go to all the drama there. We have the Powerhouse Theater. We have all these different things now that are added, you know, that are enhanced by the wine industry and vice versa. So that's one thing I would add, I guess, as far as I notice our town has changed a lot. I mean, I guess we're talking about a library project and archives. I mean, you know, if you kind of compare Walla Walla in the 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, how has it changed? And I would say the tourism is really an aspect that's really surprising to me as being a native of Walla Walla. I don't think anybody ever thought Walla Walla would have a tourism aspect to their economy. That's been a pleasant surprise to me. So.
Excellent.
Okay.
Anything else?
No. When I was a kid, I had an aunt who lived in McMinnville, and I used to always visit her in McMinnville. I wonder if the tourism has changed McMinnville a little bit too, and in that area, if it's the Willamette Valley has gotten some of that. Is it changed in that area a little bit as far as?
I would say most definitely, especially in the last 10, 20 years even.
Yeah, with their wine industry too. They have a great wine industry in the Willamette Valley. I imagine some of those little towns like those Yam Hill and those little towns.
Carlton.
They were similar to Walla Walla, and now they have a tourism/wine industry aspect to their economy that's maybe added, you know, and stuff.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much